Welcome to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today's episode, Blocks and Barrier Files, Shame Shifting.
I find the beauty in commotion, swimming by the gale, miles away.
We're also recording now too. So welcome to Grit and Grow with Megan and Sarah. Today we decided to actually do this live on Facebook as well. So this is a recorded for our podcast, and we're giving you guys a chance to get on. And Sarah's on her end. Are you going to keep an eye on it to see if there's any comments or any questions or anything? Awesome. So today we're going to talk about blame shifting and moving from blame shifting to taking accountability and moving forward in your lives. So that's where we're kind of going with this. Are we still live? Because I think I just exited out of it. We are?
Mine still says is live now.
Okay. I can't tell. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about blame shifting and moving forward from blame shifting to take accountability in your life and, change your life, create a transformation. And part of it is through getting past the blocking of blame shifting, because we're really good at that. So have you ever found yourself in a situation where someone else was clearly at fault, but they managed to twist it to make it about you, to make it your mistake? I know I've been there, and I know that I've also probably done it a few times in my life, just not even realizing but this wouldn't have happened if so-and-so didn't do this. So it's about recognizing when you are blame shifting and moving forward, right, Sarah?
Absolutely. Because it's only when you recognize that you're doing the thing that doesn't work for your life that you're able to change it. As long as you're unaware that it's going on, you don't have any power to change it. And so the first step is becoming aware. And now we are going to directly talk about blame shifting.
Well, we just had a podcast on self-awareness that we did. So this is all about being self-aware. Blame shifting is something that's common tendency. We tend to do it in our minds. We tend to do it to other people. So, even in our minds, we'll say, well, I didn't get this accomplished because this person didn't do this. And you're just shifting the blame. So I didn't get this accomplished because I didn't get it accomplished is one thing, but saying that I didn't do it because this person. There are instances where it's not technically blame shifting, and Sarah, we know we've seen those too, where it's not actually blame shifting. You can't get something done unless someone else does it. But this is something to keep in mind, because blame shifting is it's an out. It's you're giving yourself an out for not doing something or acting a certain way that you shouldn't have. But it's giving yourself an out, and in the process, you hurt other people.
When I also think of blame shifting, as you started to speak about it, it reminds me of victim mode. That's a phrase that I used to use a lot. I've had used at me a lot. And for me, when I go into that mode, things are happening to me. Oh my God, poor me. Oh my God, how could you do this to me? Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe I'm going through this. It's so weird to talk about that because I still feel it. It still comes up for me. And at the same time, I have to pull in this language of I get to, or else I get stuck in victim mode. I get stuck blame shifting. I mean, we just had a whole girl talk episode on me trying to be responsible for where my life is now, while also not going into victim mode, because I'm responsible for where I am right now. And also at the same time, it's such a balance that I get so lost in it, friend, because I have no control over some things. And so, but I wouldn't choose it. I wouldn't choose what has happened with my family over this past year. But so I get stuck.
Well, there's a lot of, blame shifting is going to happen, and it's not necessarily, you just have to recognize what I've noticed is that it comes up when there's certain things. So let me tell you about the certain things that it comes up with. Okay. Fear of failure. We've talked about fear of failure. So the other part to that is self-sabotage, right?
Yep.
So I really want to succeed,
Yep.
but I don't think I'm going to. So I'm going to blame Sarah for me not getting something done or me not doing something that I know I needed to do, because I self-sabotaging myself, but I don't want to admit that I'm doing that, because most people are not that self-aware that they, so the fear of failure is one. Avoiding responsibility. Kids are great at this, right, Sarah? I mean, mine's 7 and she likes to shift blame all the time.
Oh my God. Why do I have to do your chores?
Yep.
Sorry, what?
She dropped something on the floor the other day and she goes, Daddy did it. Your father's not even home. Yeah. Really? Oh, yeah. So we want to
But
avoid
see,
responsibility.
blame shifting when it's from a little teeny cutie, it's a little teeny cutie. When it's an 18-year-old young man saying, when you're like, dude, you should go switch some laundry or do something to contribute to the household that you live into. And the response is, why do I got to do your chores? That is not funny. It's not cute. That
No.
comes across to me as just privileged and entitled. And it's difficult for me to respond to because I'm like, I can't believe my child's like that. My child is not entitled. Oh my God. And so it's an interesting like balance to figure this out because I'm like, what have I done wrong that allows you to believe that you do not have to do any chores in the home you live in? What have I done wrong? It's not me, bro. It's you.
Yeah, well, and that's a whole nother psychology that the whole blaming yourself for everything, and we're gonna go into that one too. But no, and definitely it comes down to there are things like fear of failure, there's avoiding responsibility, there's protecting your image. Oh, that's a big one for people. That image is really, those are some of the top 3 reasons why people blame shift. Now, are there extenuating circumstances sometimes, and you've been through a lot this year, and so a lot of it is stuff that you couldn't control. The only thing you can control is how you react to something and how you move forward from it. That's where we need to stop the blame shifting and move forward. Okay. So you have extenuating circumstances. When I was hit by the car, I mean, that's not something that I was hit by a car. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. But how you respond and how you move forward is a whole different story. If you stay in that victim mode where you stay there and you're constantly going back to the shifting of the blame to that victim, oh, this was done to me, oh, this was done to my family, that's where the problem occurs. If you say, hey, look, I got hit by a car and things were not exactly where I wanted them to be, but this is what I've done since then. This is where I've moved since then. My kid was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it's created a lot of drama in our lives, and it's created a lot of checking to numbers and doing this, and it does definitely takes away from my attention on other areas. But this is how I've learned to handle it. This is where I've gone from there. You've blame shifted, but you blame shifted on something that you obviously had no control over. And what have you done from there? And that's the biggest thing, is how do you move forward? And that's what this is all about. Like, I don't want to call people out for blame shifting because we all do it. It's about, where do we go from here? Are we going to stay in that blame shifting, victim mode place? So it's the world around me. Something's out to get me. Something doesn't want me succeeding. Okay, well, the economy. Where are we going to go from here?
I'm so sick of hearing it's the economy.
Where are we going to go from here? And that's where, because there's a huge impact. I mean, think about the impact of in your life when you blame shift. Okay, the team dynamics. So in your family, when there's blame shifting, what happens with the team of the family? Now, granted, with my 7-year-old, we just but you have some older children.
I do.
Not quite as cute as with my 7-year-old blaming daddy for like the fart or something,
Tavia can hear you. Sorry. You guys, Megan and I have way too much fun when we get in our conversations.
Yes, we
do. But also, we're always coaching each other, consulting each other, because I'm more of a business consultant, probably going to lean into coaching. And so it's really fun to be on these calls and that's why we just decided to record them, is because we're both getting so much out of it. It got to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I wish we would have just recorded that last conversation we had. I had so many breakthroughs. And so that's why we've started this podcast, is to share with other people what we're learning works for us. Megan, please don't take offense to this, but I kind of have this joke that, like, I'm an old lady. Like, I'm not in my 20s. I'm an old lady, and I've been through it. And I have all these sayings that I have now that I've gotten from, whether it was a book I read or a conference I went to or a coach that I hired or a counselor that I saw for years in a row. Like, I have all of this stuff that comes up and that I want to share, that I lean on, because it helps me get through my day. It helps me be stronger. It helps me be more resilient. It's helping me reach my goals. As we've talked about victim mode and blame shifting, it reminds me of when I did Landmark years and years ago, and something that came up for me in Landmark was something called radical acceptance. And I don't know if that's something you've heard of before, we've ever even talked about, but it was the funniest thing, because they're like, big room, hundreds of people, one speaker in the front. He's like, okay, look down and say, I choose the floor. And I'm like, what? I choose the floor. It's just the floor. And he's like, say it, say you're going to choose the floor. And it was the dumbest freaking thing. But then he moved on from it. And the kind of the point of it is if you choose the things that you have no control over, you begin to have power in your life. Because
Definitely.
when you feel like things are out of control and you have no choice in the matter, that's when you feel powerless. That's when you feel like you're in victim mode. That's when you feel like you have no control over how things are going to go. And a lot of people, that puts them into the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And none of those states are productive states. None of those states are, I mean, we all have to experience them, but I'm pretty sure none of us want to stay in any of those states. And I can remember radical acceptance dramatically changing things for me, because it is what it is. I can't change it. I can't argue it. It is what it is. I continued on with Landmark and then did a weekly course every Wednesday. And it's in Portland, which is 2.5 hours from me. During evening time traffic, people were oftentimes late. Anytime anyone was late, that meant we got a 15 to 20-minute lecture on what it takes to be on time. This lecture pissed me off so bad, I got up and walked out numerous times during that lecture. And they're like, Sarah, what are you doing? You going to the restroom or something? I'm like, no, I would rather sit in my hot truck than listen to you lecture this whole fucking room full of adults on people about being on time, when who knows what's happened, if there was a car accident, if someone's child was ill, if whatever it is, who knows, but we're adults. Yes, we all want to be on time, but the fact that you keep harping on this, it's beyond tolerable for me. I can't take it. I fought that whole course the whole way. This was in 2019. In 2020, guess what happened? We have to wear masks. Everything shut down. I had no control. There was nothing I could do that could impact that situation. I just accepted it. It's what's so.
Yeah.
So I was so grateful that I'd gone through this class of forcing myself to listen to this thing that I didn't want to listen to, but I showed up and I learned and I grew, and I was miserable through the whole flipping thing. But oh man, transformed everything for me. I choose the floor.
Definitely. And I mean, and it, the other part is also true. If you choose the negative, what do you get?
More of it.
More of it. If you choose to blame others, where do you go? Nowhere. Because you're choosing. Yeah.
There's always someone to blame.
There's always someone to blame. There's always someone to blame.
Yep.
And so the other impact this has, the team dynamics is a big thing, because it's going to bring the hinders collaboration, it reduces morale, impacts productivity. That's business wise. Okay. Even family wise, like in your family with the adult children or close to adult children, you've got that blame shifting impacts productivity. The other part to it, the other major effect that blame shaming or blame shifting does is its personal growth. It has an effect on your personal growth, because if you're continually blaming others, it prevents you from taking responsibility for your actions and learning from your mistakes. One thing I've always said that if I make a mistake, and my mom always teases me about this, because back in high school, I started this. It's my mistake. It's not my friend's mistake. It's not someone else's mistake. And yes, sometimes I made a decision based on the situation, and the situation was not fully my fault, but I made that decision. That's my mistake. And if you're not willing to accept your mistakes, if you're not willing to acknowledge them and learn from them, then you're not dealing with that personal growth. You're stuck in one place. And you and I both know that I have a family member that likes to shift everything off on other people. And what that does is, one, it pushes everyone away from you. Who wants to be around someone who is going to be consistently saying, well, my life sucks because of you. This happened because of you. Who wants to be around that? Right. So your relationships are going to have a huge effect, and your friendships, any kind of relationship. But your relationship with yourself is the worst one, because you hold yourself in such low self-esteem and you don't think so little of yourself really, truly inside, that you can't even take responsibility, because you're not good enough to make those decisions. It's everyone else's fault.
Yep.
And you can't grow in that place. So I'm sorry.
I'm remembering why I connected this to victim mode. I'm like, oh, I remember feeling like that. Oh, I remember thinking about that. And then I was like, and then me and my husband separated for a while. It's interesting to be like, oh yeah, I really got into victim mode. And it took me stepping away and being like, oh no, I'm responsible for everything now. My partner and I are separated. So now this is all of my responsibility. And I remember with your support, I was able to figure it out. I mean, it of course was not the best situation, but we figured it out. My kiddo graduated that year. Like, it was a big deal. And so it's I don't know, it's really emotional for me to remember that version of Sarah. And again, if we weren't having this conversation, I wouldn't be connected to how much I've grown. I wouldn't be able to have the conversation that I think we were talking about I had with him, saying, hey, I get that I've let you treat me like this, and so now you think it's okay to treat me like this, but this isn't okay. My expectation is this, and I have the same expectation for you. And so if you're not being treated in a way you'd like, I would like you to use your words and say, hey, can you treat me like this instead of like this? And I will hear you and most likely be happy to comply because I want to treat you the way you want to be treated. Shocking when that works.
It is very, but and like you and I were talking about earlier, you know, it's all about boundaries. And once you get out of that victim mode, it's about setting those boundaries and really knowing yourself, having that self-awareness to know what you're comfortable with and what you're not. And you're at that point where you're saying, I am not comfortable with this. I will not accept this. So is there anything on Facebook yet?
Nope, no questions yet. I've been taking a peek.
Okay. So the last part of this, what I wanted to talk about was overcoming it, because overcoming blame shifting, are we ever going to get rid of it 100%? No, I still do it. But it's not that you don't do it, it's that you don't stay there. Right? You don't stay in that place of shifting your blame. You start taking your own accountability. So one of those things is our previous conversation on self-awareness. That's the first step of overcoming blame shifting, because you are now aware of yourself and your decisions and what you're doing. And so therefore you're paying attention to your own thoughts and you're paying attention to what you're doing. And so now you can't really blame shift as much. You know, the next one is taking responsibility. Own your mistakes. They're mistakes. They're not the end of the world. You learn from your mistake, own them and learn from them and move forward. And even if they make you uncomfortable, learn from them and move forward, because you know what? Next time you won't make that same mistake. And by taking responsibility in relationships and not blaming each other, that builds trust and a respect amongst the relationship. So like you and I have a really good relationship. We have a really good friendship, and we've both made mistakes different times within our relationship. We've made mistakes. And if we take accountability, it shows more. I have more respect for you if you're going to take accountability for something, then you say, well, no, I did that because you did that. No, okay, I did my part, but what was your part? You know?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had one of those back and forth before at all.
I don't, because we both respect, you know, and we hear each other. Not maybe at that moment, but we do hear each other. Sometimes we have to walk away and come back, but we do hear each other. Effective communication. This is the basis of not only getting over blame shifting, this is the basis of every relationship in your life is communication. And we were just talking about this in our random conversation we were having, is effective communication. Communication is key in the world, and communication is key with every relationship, and communication is key with yourself, so that you understand why you're making these decisions and why, and using statements like Sarah, I feel that, you know, the I statements, those are big, because now you're taking responsibility on yourself for how you feel, to what you're thinking, everything.
Something that I have had to change in my language with my partner when we fight is something I used to do was, you're making me feel like I'm not important. You're making me feel this, or you're making me feel that. And then I had to pull out of that and saying, I feel this when you that, because you can't make anyone feel anything. We don't have that power. Right. If we do have that power, we only have that power because someone gave it to us. Like, I feel like you and I have a lot of power in our relationship with each other, and that's because we respect each other. But I still would never say, you made me feel hurt, you made me feel not important. I would say, you made me feel hurt when I thought we had a meeting and you didn't show up, or something like that. You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of language that I have learned to use now. And again, I still get into these breakdowns with my partner. I've been with my husband now since 2008. I literally just looked over because I'm like, I always say the wrong amount of time. I think it's like 16 years at this point. We do the back and forth, the blame shifting. We do every one of these things that we've talked about today. And so I'm actually really excited to start to implement it and see where we can be responsible and see how things change as we start to use these tools. Because I had a doctor say to me that I worked under, they were my doctor, I was working for them, that said to me, impact over intent. And it has hit me so hard, because if I intend to show up for you and support you, but the impact is that you feel smothered, am I responsible for you feeling smothered?
No, that's you.
I struggle with this.
That's the person.
Right. Like, oh goodness, that's not what I was intending. So if my intention was off, I need to be aware of it. And if the only way I'm supposed to be aware of it is by picking up on your body language, that's a high expectation for me. That's like too high of an expectation. I would hope that they could use words to say, hey, can I have some space? Or I almost just said it, hey, you're making me feel smothered. No, we don't want to use that kind of language. So it's such a slippery slope.
It is. And in that kind of a situation, like it's saying, look, I understand that your intent is to be helpful and your intent is this. However, it's making me feel a little overwhelmed with being smothered and stuff. So I've acknowledged your intent, but I've also explained to you the impact it's having on me. So I disagree with that impact over intent, because your intent is very important. Your impact, and this is something that I don't want to, but I'm going to get into this conversation when it comes to the way people are today. So I go outside and and I'm having fun with my friends and stuff, and someone takes a comment I say to a friend because they're unhappy. So let's shift that blame over to the next person that upsets me. Even if it's not related to me, I'm going to be upset.
Be offended. People are offended now.
Oh my God.
Which was interesting because I had to work through that for myself. That happened to me all the time back in 2020, 2021. I'm like, oh my God, that's so offensive. Why would you do that? I'm like, because I kept doing it. And then I started reading the memes about, no one cares that you're offended. No one, like, why does it matter that I'm offended? I don't know. It doesn't matter. And you know what I mean? And it was such an interesting growth thing for me.
Well, and if I say something specifically to you that offends you, yes, I want to know, because if my intent was not to offend you, I want to know so I can look at how I said it or the way I said it, what I said, and kind of correct the behavior. But if I'm talking to my friends and you overhear something, or if I'm walking down the street with my dog, or if, different things that have nothing related to you and you get offended, that's not my problem. That's a you problem. And you need to have a conversation with yourself at that point, as why is everything everyone is doing offending me? And it's really, that's where the slope, we've gone from here to like, everyone is so worried about offending other people. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I can't live my life worried about offending every single person I run past it during the day, And
I think that's why you and I get along so well. Because I have that fear, carry that fear around. It's massive. I unfortunately was raised, and my childhood include racial slurs, and I didn't know it until I knew it. And so then once you know that that's in you, and you're like, oh God, I'm not going to be that way. So now I'm very hypersensitive or overly aware of, I don't want to be that way. I would never want to be, I would never actively choose to be that way. So I don't ever want to accidentally be that way. So I get so wrapped up in self-awareness that I don't get to authentically be me, and I get uncomfortable in situations. I think my husband, Adam, and you have a lot of very, very similar characteristics, and that's why we get along so well. I know you love that. But like, he's the same way. He's like, I don't worry about offending people. He makes what he thinks is really funny jokes. I've watched other people think his jokes are really funny. And meanwhile, I'm like, wasn't that racist? Adam, why would you say that? I feel like, oh my God, that was so stereotypical. Why would you say that? I have this fear of offending people. I have been the person in public where I have said something like, you're yelling in public right now, sweetie. And the woman hit me. I was drunk. We were in a bar. I obviously should not have said what I said, but I was like, maybe she doesn't realize she's yelling in a bar right now, like having a huge, massive fight with her boyfriend, yelling. I'm like, sweetie, you're yelling in a bar right now. And girlfriend hauled up and smacked me. And so I have a fear of just being myself. I was not trying to be condescending. I was not trying to be ugly. I was not trying to be like I would do that to you too. Like, we were somewhere public and you're like, love, let's go outside. Let's take a breath. But I didn't know her and I was drunk anyhow. And so this fear for me is massive. And so that's why I love your personality. You don't pussyfoot around. You're not afraid to say things. But I also never feel like you're trying to be offensive. I also never feel like you don't care ever. So I do get offended. You've seen it in my face though.
I have seen it in your face a few times. I've been like, oh, that would hit it. That hit a nerve. That was one thing she did not want. Okay. But the thing is that like, if I have to worry about everything I say and how it's going to offend people, then I can't, I'll feel so overwhelmed with that fear that I won't want to talk. So I just, I will apologize if I offend someone. I'll say, I'm really sorry that I offended you. I was not in my intent. It was a joke or whatever. But if you're going to start like an argument with me over it after I've apologized, then it's not my problem.
Yep.
It's not my problem.
What I need. I have so much to learn from you. Like, I also say things like lesson release. I don't want to have that fight. I literally just on Facebook, I had to block someone that I did some very menial housework for her in July. She was talking about launching a business and that was coming up very soon. That's what I do. I help people launch their businesses, but I was happy to help her with her menial house tasks while she was recovering from a very bad injury or situation. Her hands were raw. She could not do things for herself like laundry and dishes and cooking. I didn't mind doing that at all, but it never transitioned into the business work. And so to have it not transition the way I want to, and then have her disrespect me a whole bunch of times, I just kind of said, I'm not really interested in that, but thanks so much. And I haven't heard from her in like 3 weeks. No skin off my back. I saw a friend of mine saying she was looking for work. I knew she was working for that same friend. I'm like, oh, did that not work out? She's just messaged me that, oh no, it didn't work out so much. This poor friend of mine is now, she's like, she's freaking out at me because we talked about her. I'm like, but we didn't talk about her. We didn't. You're okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just bless and release. And so this poor girl is now sending me these screenshots of this other person freaking out at her. I'm like, but there was no breakdown. I just wasn't interested in that kind of work. There's no breakdown. I'm not mad. You know what I mean? And so when she started to jump in on this thread, this person that I worked for, I just decided I went to her profile and I saw she'd unfriended me. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to block her because I'm not interested in any type of negative interaction. The interactions I had with her in her home were not very pleasant. I didn't enjoy myself. I, in fact, felt disrespected a lot of the time, and which is why I kind of just eased up and went back. And so, like, I don't mean to get off topic, but like, this is what we mean by blame shifting, because she's now unloading on this third party as if we've done something wrong when there was no wrong. No one here has been wronged unless we've chosen to be. And if you're going to choose to be, you're going to spend a lot of time on that. And I want to call myself out because, I've been choosing to spend a lot of time feeling wronged.
Yes, you have. And we're moving past that together. We're getting there. I mean, like, but okay, the difference is you were actually wronged. This woman, no names were mentioned. Nothing was mentioned. You just said, so it didn't work out. And she said, no, not so much. There was no names called. There was no names called out. There was no one actually was talking about her specifically in the in the messaging. It was just literally, hey, didn't work out. Okay. So there's a difference. You've actually were wronged and we're working on moving past it. There was actually wrongness done to you and we're moving past it. This is a whole different situation. And the next thing, I don't know what the text messages are saying, but it's like, well, you did this and you did that. I can just imagine. I can just like imagine in my head the blame shifting. Like, well, you did this and you did that and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And that's why I couldn't do this. And that's why I was like this. And like the blame shifting, and people get stuck in that. And guys, like for our listeners, if you feel like you're stuck in a place of negativity where you feel like that's a possibility, reach out to us, because one, will make you laugh. Yep. That's a guarantee. Number one. But two, we can help you move past it and see where you can make changes to help yourself. And that's why we're doing these podcasts. And then we decided to do Facebook today with the podcast. We're recording it too. It's really to encourage you to share your experiences where you've either been shifted the blame to you and how it made you feel and what you did, or where you blame shifted and maybe you're stuck there and you want to move past it, but you're really not sure how, because both Sarah and I have been on both aspects of that, both parts of it. We've blame shifted and we've been blame shifted too. It's made to be like it's all our fault. And we can help you kind of find that direction that you need to go in to help you get past the situation, whether it's towards you or you're doing it. And that's kind of really where we're at, is we're trying to get this podcast out there to help people with all different things. We did self-awareness, we did scheduling, which I admitted to my downfall in scheduling, and we've done self-sabotage and fear of failure. And it's all about getting this information out to help you and to make a change for you, and also to help ourselves, because during every podcast we're going back and forth calling each other out on stuff and coaching each other through things that come up during the podcast. It's great. We have a lot of fun.
It's also really fun to like go back and be like, oh my gosh, I remember who I was when I had that breakdown that at this point was 3 years ago or 2 years ago. My most recent one was like 4 months ago. You know, I'm like, oh my God, I can remember how I felt then. Compare that to how I feel now. Meghan, you really helped me connect with my worthiness today, how much I've grown today, the value that I have to offer today, because I forget. I get wrapped up in some of the cycles, some of the self-sabotage, that little negative gremlin that sits on my shoulder. I get all wrapped up. And so for me, it takes conversations like this. That's, again, one of the reasons that I wanted to join your podcast. I don't remember if I asked or you offered, but I get so much out of interacting with you, and I watch our businesses do so much better. And I'm also excited to have people join us and get the value from it. And I want them to know they have a village. We're right here.
We're right here. We're part of the village. And I got to say, Sarah, I have to say that in the conversations that we've had today, before we started, your attitude was, I don't really know what to do. I don't know. And it was very negative. And now your whole facial expressions, everything has changed. And you even text me when we had to get off so I could go get my daughter. You text me, I want to do more. I'm like, dude, like, okay.
I went live on my Facebook page for the first time, and I cannot remember how long.
And this morning you wouldn't have done that.
I'm passionate about.
This
No, I
morning
wouldn't.
you
I
wouldn't have
absolutely
done that.
wouldn't.
So
No.
it's helpful to everyone.
Yeah. Now we got to hold ourselves to the work that we know we got to do, though, honey.
I know. I'm gonna cough now and go off screen. Now it's the accountability part. Okay.
Right, love.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
You gotta make some dinner.
Yep. And Joey just got home, so I'm gonna go and we're gonna stop this podcast and we're going to stop the Facebook Live, guys. Comment below. Go visit us on Grit and Grow with Meghan and Sarah. We are on where are we? We're on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Grit and Grow with Meghan and Sarah. I couldn't get Spotify out. We're on all of those. Our Grit and Grow with Meghan and Sarah. Come back and visit us. Chat with one of us. We'd love to get you up here. If you have something that you'd like to share, something you're going through and you just need a little bit of help getting through it, we'd love to have you on here. Anything, Sarah?
Toodles for now. I can't wait
Toodles
till
for
you
now.
upload these so people can get the value from them. I'm going
Awesome.
to put this one on Facebook Live, so it's right there available.
Awesome. We will see everyone again tomorrow or the next day.
I'm living